Hello and welcome to Say Hi to the Future, a podcast aimed at highlighting the human side of ingenuity. My name is Ken Tenser, CEO of SpyderWorks, a leading business consultancy for mid-market organizations and entrepreneurs globally. With me today is Omar Abedin, founder of PakTekHub, Pakistan's first venture studio, helping founders build sustainable startups. Like this video if you enjoy our show and subscribe to our channel. Leave us a comment with who we should interview next. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Omar Abedin, welcome to Say Hi to the Future.
Hey, Ken, thank you for having me.
So Omar, it seems like a lifetime ago that we had coffee in Toronto, Canada. How have you been keeping, first of all?
Busy. It has been a long time. One thing I remember clearly about that day is that you were kind enough to give me a copy of your book, and it's something that's in my reading. I refer to it every so often because it had such interesting ideas. And there's some people you meet just once, and it kind of stays with you, you know. And that meeting has really stayed with me. It's been at least, I mean, it's been more than 5 years. I know that.
Yep. Yeah, it's a
So,
while, but no, well,
but
thank
yeah,
you for that, Omar. And it's obviously stuck with me too. I very much look forward to talking with you today and to catching up. One of the things that, and I think we've talked about before, is that you see yourself as a change agent and a growth driver. So what are those things? And how did you become those two important roles?
I don't think I've become them. I really subscribe to this concept, the Japanese concept of ikigai. I'm sure you've heard of it, right? The
Mhm.
four circles of life, and the 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 happiest man, the most fulfilled person on the planet would have four circles, all of them sitting on top of each other. So they look like one circle, right? Passion and um, profession and creativity all kind of combined to give you one whole. And so the Japanese view this as something almost unattainable, as something to aspire to, but it's a journey, right? Being a change agent kind of comes naturally to me. I think I like taking things head on. I'm not the most diplomatic person in the world. I've been told that many times. And so, when you realize that, there are certain tools that are not in your wheelhouse, then you just move on and you say, okay, fine. If this is my role, then this is my role. So I think accepting who you are and accepting the reality of what is happening around you allows you to sometimes see changes that are happening and embrace them faster than other people. That's all. I mean, if it's inevitable, burying your head in the sand is not going to help you, right? So the concept of burying my head in the sand is anathema to who I am. So that's, I guess, where the change agent piece comes in. And because of that, my poor and long-suffering spouse has put up with, moving from Karachi to Dubai, to Karachi to Dubai, to Saudi Arabia, to Montreal, to Toronto, to back to Dubai, and then eventually to the US, and then back to Dubai, and then we're now in Karachi, and this has been us for the last 25 years. So our kids have grown up with this continuous, different points of view, different ideologies. Because one of my favorite quotations is that, and I'm paraphrasing badly, is that nothing destroys prejudice like another point of view, like travel. So you can't be prejudiced against a people when you've gone and had dinner with them,
Right.
or traveled in their land, because you understand them at some point, right? That is kind of what I've tried to be my whole life. Similarly, I've been a marketer for a long time, right? 30, almost 30, more than 30 years actually at this point. But I've
You
never
can
worked.
lie, Omar. You can say 20.
No, no, I lose track. I honest to God, I lose track at points, and you'd think you'd remember 30 years, and you're like, damn, yeah, but I remember all of those years, right? The good, the bad, the ugly, the infinitely forgettable, but you still remember them because you lived them. But I've in those 30 years, I've worked for a lot of companies, multinationals, local companies, global companies, like all kinds of companies. But I've never worked in the same vertical twice.
Hmm.
Always in marketing, but never in the same vertical. And people ask me like, how did you manage that? Because we have a tendency to try and pigeonhole people. We want to put people into nice little slots, right? Oh, he's an FMCG marketer. Oh, she's a bank or a financial services marketer, or he or she is an automotive marketer, as an example.
Right.
And I just refuse to do that because there's so much to learn. There's so much to do. Why should anyone silo you? Why should anyone get to pigeonhole who you are? So it's been a journey. It's been a hike.
So Omar, I mean, look, that's an incredible backstory of travel and of learning and of building who you are. As a change agent, though, I would imagine that, look, we don't look to the past. We build on the past. We build on our experiences, of which you obviously have many rich experiences. When you look forward, though, to be a change agent, again, I think you need to be very strong in the futures area. So what do you see coming up that will impact, business organizations or us as individuals?
I'm definitely not Nostradamus. I would honestly believe that you have probably greater insight into this space than I do. There are some things you know, obvious to me at this point, and I'm sure they're obvious to your listeners as well. But if you were to try and list down in no particular order of relevance, right, or importance, I mean, look at the impact that AI is having in in just everyday life. Until now, it's been at the back end of stuff, and people haven't really been interacting with it. They don't really know. They have the opportunity to get annoyed with automated banking systems that don't really work, and so on. And then all of a sudden, the tech takes a massive leap and comes into the forefront with Chat GPT.
Right.
And I started using it pretty soon after it came out, and I have been blown away at how much more productive it has made me. Things that I would need to sit back and research and really dig into, like basic things like writing a policy statement. That policy would have taken me probably a week of research and digging through different websites and trying to find the right policy for the right fund and so on and so forth. And now I go to Chat GPT. The trick is in the prompts. So if you write the most specific prompt possible, Chat GPT will give you a very specific answer. So I've started. I mean, I love it. It scares the hell out of me at one level, and
Yep.
at the other level, I'm like, okay, I can't. You know what? Okay, whatever. They have my phone number. They have my location. They know everything about me already. So what the hell else am I going to tell them that they don't already know? So artificial intelligence is going to really start playing an important role, a visible role in our lives. Along with that, I think you're going to start seeing hardware and humans interacting more. So whether it is driverless cars or drones that are running on autopilot and doing deliveries,
Hmm.
uh, or robots that are doing meet and greet services, you're going to start seeing much more intrusion of physical hardware that is not human, or not obviously human powered. You can see it. It's going to happen. I mean, Uber is waiting for the day that they no longer need anyone to drive their cars.
Right.
That's the day they will hit profitability, because then the dream, the nirvana situation for Uber is that every car in the world is a commodity that can be monetized. And so your car in your garage could suddenly get up and go off for a drive and, make some money for you and come back. And you're like, wait, what happened? And you may not even notice because it might be at night while you're sleeping, and your car will know you, right? So the car will come in and plug itself in and get charged. And when you need it in the morning, it'll be there. And then of course you've got, this huge impact on financial services, right? So the Gen Zs and the alphas that are coming out have a very different view of fixed assets than, our generation or our parents' generation did. I mean, for us, it was an aspiration to be able to own a home. And when you talk to young people, they're like, but why? Why should I sink my entire life into trying to buy this white elephant, which I will use at best for 1/3 of my life, which is the third I spend sleeping, right? Maybe it'll be slightly more than that, but that's it. And so all the rest of the time, this residence, this house is of no use to me. So they have a very different point of view on fixed assets. They don't want to own cars. I mean, they like
Right.
cars, but they think that cars are to blame for a lot of the problems that we have in the world in terms of emissions and so on. They have the same problem with flights. We're going to see more and more decision making being impacted by this younger generation that is, in my view, the most aware of what is happening in the world, of what is happening to the environment, of what they are holding us accountable. I mean, you don't have to follow, the angry young environmentalists to know why they're angry. They have a right to be angry.
Yes, for sure.
Those environmental factors are going to start hitting us in the face. You spent 2 days in an airport. Imagine if it stops snowing in Toronto over the next 100 years, and instead, all the forests die and they're replaced by desert. What would happen to Canada at that point, right? Yep. Now take the reverse scenario for Africa and say, what happens if the Sahara becomes green? Right? There are massive changes happening in the climate of the world, and the worst case scenarios are that 1/3 of the world will be underwater in the next 100 years. 1/3 of the world that we know.
Yep.
So that's the worst case. I'm hoping that human ingenuity and common sense will begin to prevail at some point, and we will be able to step back from the abyss. But I mean, there are vast swathes of land that in the foreseeable future, you and I might get to see that happening, where large, I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of square miles of coastal land, just vanishing. And then trying to reclaim that from the sea is not going to be easy.
Yeah.
So you've got climate tech that's going to, really step up, and, we're going to have to start meaning what we say when we talk about recycling. I mean, Canada has done some really good work in terms of trying to recycle and, reduce waste and reuse what we have. But the global footprint of North America remains 10 times higher than the rest of the world.
Right.
You know what I mean? So the US is 5% of the world's population, but contributes some stupid amount of its trash, right? Like 40% of its trash or 50% of its trash. And you've got this gigantic island of trash floating in the Pacific, the size of Texas, or bigger now. I mean, I believe it's growing every year. How do we deal with that? And where is it going to wash up eventually? Because at some point, it's just going to clog up everything, right? And then we all die. Because without the tides, without the currents, all the weather goes to crap. So, it's a very, I think now the problems are becoming so well known. I'm hoping that those solutions will start emerging, and they will emerge, I believe, from developing markets. I think they're going to come out of Africa and Asia and the Far East, because we are the people who are going to be affected by it the most. So, I have a lot of hope for the young generation. I think we're all putting our money behind these young kids, because let's face it, our generation and the generation before us, we sucked at it. It wasn't a priority for us, and we have to be held accountable. And our kids are going to do
Yeah.
that because the kids don't care. They just don't care.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right with that. And I mean, my kids are, mid late 20s, moved out now, but their individual commitment and part of their career commitment is righting wrongs, whether that be around um, circular economy or women's rights, equality in general. And I think, what we've overlooked, when we look at the next generation, is that they were the first generation that had the capacity to have a conversation with anybody anywhere in the world on any subject, any time of day or night that they so choose. And they have a connectivity and an understanding that, frankly, our generation never, I mean, we never even imagined that. We were still looking at encyclopedias, which were years out of date. So I
Yeah.
think you're absolutely right. And it also lends itself, I mean, your discussion about the changes in next generation, it lends itself to a discussion about, where you focus or where your career focus is turned to. And that is helping support founders and resilient startups and growing startup ecosystems. So tell us a little bit about that, because again, your beliefs seem to be so well founded, in such a perfect position today to drive this change.
For the last 10 years or so, I've been kind of inching towards entrepreneurship, and trying to figure out what I can do. So I did my first startup in 2010 in Dubai, and then I worked for a fintech startup, and then I had the chance to work for Kareem, which was acquired by Uber a couple of years ago for about $3 billion. And I realized that there are multiple roles that you can do. You can be a mentor, you can be an advisor, you can be a marketing consultant or some other consultant. You can also be a founder yourself or a co-founder, or you can be an early joiner at a startup. Join a startup from the very beginning and watch it grow, be employee number 1 or 1 through 5 or something like that. Or you can be an investor. And there are different types of investing. You can be an angel investor writing small checks from your savings, or you can do it professionally. So I've done pretty much all of that. I also run a venture studio in Pakistan, and actually we have some partners outside of Pakistan as well. So we work with about a dozen companies, and we help them to get ready for fundraising, but we also help them to build sustainable businesses. And the idea is that the old burn models, burn
Right.
based models, where every dollar you spent, you actually lost $2. Those burn models are a thing of the past, right? No VC is supporting that kind of a
I'm
model now.
Omar, I'm just chuckling because a number of years ago, I was writing columns for the Globe and Mail, Canada's national newspaper, and I was looking at the valuations in my master's in finance, and I wrote, burn rate is just not a financial measure. And I got destroyed in my comments about how long ago did you go to finance school? And I'm very glad that it's come back. Sorry to cut you off, but I am just so glad that it's come back, because yeah, at some point you have to make a dollar to grow your business.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, that model was, I think, spurred on globally by the availability of really cheap money. Interest rates were at a historic low. Real estate prices were at historic highs and growing. And then there was COVID. COVID, trillions of dollars in relief funds made its way to
Right.
people's bank accounts, and that money had to go somewhere. When this current, whatever you want to call it, economic slowdown came about, people were initially taken aback. No one was expecting it. At least anyone who's not an economist was not expecting it. There are quite a few people who saw the writing on the wall and pulled out of Wall Street. They pulled out of the um the stock market, liquidated their funds, and just sat back because they knew that a crash was coming. And more power to them. The 99.8% of people were caught completely off guard, and people saw their 401ks, or their RRSPs, as they're called in Canada, completely fall through the floor. If you lose 90% of your valuations in terms of stocks that you hold, it doesn't really make you very keen to invest further, right? You're at that point, you're just like, oh my God, please God help, because at that point, we all remember God, right? When there's blood in the streets. So the reality is, I think right now venture capital is sitting on $400 billion of what we call dry gunpowder. They're just not investing the money globally. Valuations have come off a great deal. Investors are being much more. It's the same investor, by the way, who 2 years ago was running around like a headless chicken trying to find the next big thing. Was able to write a check on a pitch deck, and now the level of due diligence and involvement is completely different. It's same investor, different environment. So for me, the transition, I mean, I still love marketing. I'm still a very passionate marketer. So I work with startups and help them with their marketing and branding strategies. But for me, the real opportunity now is to be able to write those checks myself, to invest in the founders that I believe in, that are they're really tackling big problems where the market size is not the 1%. It's the 90% or the 85% of the population. So you've got amazing founders in fintech and e-commerce and health tech, ed tech, artificial intelligence. So many amazing ideas coming out of markets like Pakistan. In the last couple of years, I've met over 1,000 founders. Because that's just, I love doing that. I mean, every day I talk to 2 or 3 founders, and I'm not talking about 2-minute elevator conversations. I'm talking about 30-minute to an hour discussions about their business, their model, where they're going, where they're coming from, why they're doing what they're doing, and so on. I remain very optimistic about the future, but the short-term future, the next 6 to 12 months, 18 months, 24 months is going to be a grind. Anyone who comes out at the other end of this will be the leanest, meanest, fastest, best version of themselves possible, because they will have survived the next 24 months. And most people will not survive. A lot of companies will just end because they no longer have the cash to be able to continue their businesses. They have not been able to pivot. They've not been agile enough to change their business model and figure out a way to fix what needs to be fixed. And many of them will die with bowls in their hand in front of investors. Right. And investors will say, yeah, no, thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye. And that's it. I think the opportunity for investment now is probably in terms of the quality of people that are looking for investment, the new lower valuations at which investments can actually be deployed, and the correspondingly higher equity percentage that you can get for the same dollar, makes this a very attractive time for investors who have a long-term perspective. If you're a short-term investor looking for a 2x or 3x exit in a year, this is not the time for you. But if you can hold on for 5 to 7 years, you will leave this market with 10x or 20x. Mm-hmm. It won't be a single-digit multiple. It'll be a double-digit multiple. And I mean, you got to believe that the world will still be here in 5 years, right? It's not like we're all getting up and going to Mars with Elon. Not many of us actually have tickets on that particular spaceship. Just on Elon, actually, I just had a thought. You're going to see a lot more impact-based investing happening, right? So people who are actually investing for the betterment of the planet, and yes, they are, of course, looking for ROI, but they're really interested in doing something that will save the planet from us, right? So it'll be across multiple verticals, but anything that has an impact on, for the betterment of humanity, I think you'll see more and more dollars getting deployed towards that. It's just a thought,
Yeah.
because I recently sold all my Tesla shares because of the way that Mr. Musk has been behaving. I'm no longer willing to invest in a company or a CEO who behaves in this particular way. It's not in line with my values. I would like to believe that I'm a values-driven investor, and I will not invest in someone who who behaves in this particular way and says the things that he does. It doesn't really matter how much money you're going to make for me. If our values are not aligned, I'm not interested in investing in you. The other case recently was a very pathetic state of affairs at Scott Adams. You know, the guy who wrote all those books in the 90s about the the Dilbert series,
Yes, 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 yes.
right? So he just recently turned into a flaming pile of crap. Like I don't know where the hell what happened to this guy. And I'm actually doing a post on LinkedIn where I'm taking those books off my bookshelf and giving them away, because I have no room on my bookshelf
Mm-hmm.
for racist bullshit. That and this is a guy that I looked up to for years. I used to, his books have been shared around my circle for the last 20 years. And now I'm just like, you know what, dude? I don't want to identify with you. Shame on you. Have you lost your mind? What is wrong with you? So anyway,
Yeah,
sorry.
it's no,
For that,
no, it's
but I think you'll see a lot more people making decisions
yeah.
based on what they believe to be right or wrong.
Oh, yes. I think, yeah, yes, value-based investing is critical because it's, I mean, if you look at the business side of it, the consumer, whether it's yourself or maybe even 10x on the next gen, they are looking to align with the values of the companies that they buy from or interact with. And you know what? Kudos. I think that's incredible. The other thing I want to touch on too, because you touched on well, quite a bit on the environment and change and startups relating to it. I'm finding one of the biggest challenges, and the World Economic Forum pointed it out, so it's not, there's no original thought on my behalf here. It's still not relatable to the average business owner. And I, 1.5 degree target for the world. I have no idea what that means. And so one of our, the things that we are undertaking at Say Hi is it is it's a for-profit but social-based activation, is trying to help companies understand the impact of carbon reduction, but also the impact on their business operations to make it a little bit crunchier for the average individual.
Very interesting. I'd love to learn more about that.
Is that something you find in general, though? I mean, is that something that when you look at investments today, are they articulating, especially in the green or clean tech space, the impact on the owner or the leader or the founder of the organization and its operations?
So if I take a step back from that, because that's a pretty granular question.
Mm-hmm.
If I take a step back from that, I'm seeing more and more pitch decks in which the UN SDGs are somehow being referenced or addressed. And that's sort of the base level in my view. If you're doing a business in which you're not even bothered about the SDGs, even if it's a side effect of what you're doing, at least be aware that you could potentially be positively impacting
Right.
one of the UN SDGs. So that to me is the baseline. If someone is not even willing to look at that, or they don't understand that, that for me is a red flag. That means that you're kind of oblivious to what is happening in the world, and you have no interest in making the world a better place in any way, shape, or form. Now, coming to sort of where does it start from in a startup? It starts from the leadership. It starts from the founder. If the founder does not have a belief that making the world a better place or leaving the world better than you found it is important and critical and to the core of the business, everything they do around this will be lip service. There will be no seriousness. There will be no Measurement of impact, in fact, there will be no impact. There'll be a lot of greenwashing, which is
Yep.
unfortunate. We see very large companies doing that very successfully,
Hmm.
unfortunately, especially the oil and gas industry, and all the related industries around that particular vertical. But if you believe as a person that your business should be carbon neutral, at worst it should be carbon neutral,
Mm-hmm.
then, everything you do takes that into consideration. Do I need to fly? Can I drive? Can I take the train? If you're in Europe, you can take a train anywhere, honestly.
Yes.
In North America, especially in Canada, we're used to driving, hundreds of miles at the drop of a hat, and usually in a massive pickup truck with a 5.6 liter Hemi engine that gets you 5 miles to the gallon if you're lucky, right?
Yep.
Um, that is going to change because it's just, first of all, gas eventually will become stupidly expensive because gas is a finite resource at the end of the day. Plus, I honestly believe that taxation in Canada, I know that all Canadians will instantly be upset with my saying this, but I think that the taxation on fossil fuels is not high enough. We need to make it so unattractive. It's like buying a pack of cigarettes, right? You pay what, $20 for a pack of 8 cigarettes now? I mean,
Right.
there's a really punitive cost to smoking in parts of the developed world. The same cigarettes are available in Pakistan for $1.50 for a pack of 12 or 16, because in Pakistan, it's like, meh, we've got 220 million people. So if you die of lung cancer, who gives a shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's really no seriousness around it. Yeah, the packs have all those really graphic visuals of lungs and this and that and the other, but nobody really buys into it. So it starts with the leadership team, starts with the founder. If the founder makes it a priority for the business will solve problems from that point of view. If it's not, if it's all about the money, if it's all about the short term, and hell with the planet, then that's the way the business is going to be. And there's lots of businesses like that. Doesn't mean that you should be investing in them. That doesn't mean you should be, deprioritizing others over them. So
I will say though, I not that I disagree with anything you've said at all. I think though we still haven't provided a completely accessible offer to business. And what I mean by that, especially in a country like Canada, where you can talk about electric cars and talk about electric trucks and electric school buses, their ability to do their work, if you will, at minus 20 degrees, it is not very good. And so
yeah,
and don't get me wrong, I'm all for electric vehicles. But yeah, there are certain uses that still, even if we mandated, simply cannot do what they're meant to do,
sure.
because of the other climate conditions. So I think the onus is as much on research and science to not make claims about how far a truck or a car can go at 70 degrees, 70 Fahrenheit, so 25 Celsius, we'll say,
Right.
when the average winter temperature low is minus 20.
Yes.
So,
No doubt. And that comes back to the point of investing in education, right? So North America, again, I'm not going to hold Canada to the same standard as the US, but I mean, let's face it, the standards of education in North America right now are not the best in the world. And yet
yes.
we expect innovation from North America. We expect innovation from, Silicon Valley and the other sort of beating hearts of the financial sector. I don't really expect it from Canada because, the Canadian economy is a little bit more conservative. It's a, I don't really want to bash Canada because, it's home, but sometimes I get really frustrated with the level of conservatism that I see in um, in many aspects of Canadian life. And
Hmm.
that embrace of innovation and really driving the change. We have amazing universities, we have amazing incubation centers and accelerators, but you don't hear about that level of innovation coming out of Canada, which is, I think there's a massive opportunity there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, I mean,
We
in the
are.
US, the numbers are very, very bad, right? Whatever, 27th in the world in this, and 60th in the world in this, and 100th in the world in that. And, US exceptionalism ends there. It's not, if your education remains at the level that it is today, the level of innovation coming out of the US will be driven by nationalities like India, Korea, China. It will not be driven by American nationals. And then you will continue this disenfranchisement that's happened in the US, where one third of the country still believes that the previous guy won the election. Like,
Right.
I mean, come on, guys, what well have you fallen down? It's like there's an alternate reality that's happening there. So without education, nothing works. And STEM education in particular, you're absolutely right. Without a focus on STEM or STEAM education,
Hmm.
innovation will die. Or it won't die. It'll just move somewhere else.
Right.
So, you know,
Yeah. So, Omar, I've really appreciated your time today, and as our time at Say Hi is coming to an end in this discussion, there is one other uh, topic I just like to throw out and or understand, and that is Wander. What
hmm.
is it, and what are some of the success stories?
Well, we don't have any success stories as yet, but the idea behind Wonder is to enable entrepreneurs from the developing world that are looking for, North American markets, to actually follow, or align their personal ambitions with their corporate ambitions. So take their startup ideas and
Hmm.
help them to scale them in Canada, and from Canada, obviously, to the rest of the continent. And the idea is that, Canada has some amazing entrepreneurial visa programs, as do some other countries. Entrepreneurial visas are becoming more and more popular around the world.
Yeah.
Uh, and for the most part, the level of investment required is relatively low. So what we do is we bring startup founders together with investors, create a startup which is reasonably well funded and can support itself for a year. And then we help them through the visa process, where we help them to not only get an entrepreneurial visa for their startup, but also for the founders and their families. And then, so we're currently working with 3 or 4 startups to help them to do that. It is a very time-consuming process, as you know. There are no shortcuts to immigration in Canada, because now you're talking about, 2 parallel streams that have to approve your visa as you go through different stages of the process. But I believe that if you allow people to align their personal and professional goals, in the long term, it's a win-win for Canada. Fresh blood, fresh insights, innovation. If you can't make it, then import it, which has been a Canadian solution for the birth deficit. Let's say for the last 10 or 15 years, Canada has
Right.
been a net immigration market, and those immigrants come in with money, with talent, with skills, with ideas. And that overall, I mean, since I'm one of those people, I'm kind of biased in this response, but I believe that those immigrants, for the most part, bring a lot of energy, and they help to transform the Canadian landscape into a more innovative one. I This is just my point of view. And so that's what Wonder is trying to enable in a particular area, which is the entrepreneurial visa program for startup founders.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I mean, there's one thing that well, many things we completely agree on, but diversity. And at all of our Say Hi events, we recently had a speaker in the US say that it was the single most diverse audience he's ever been invited to speak before. And this is a TEDx speaker, and diverse from age, from background, from gender identity, from race, from like, I'll call it the capital D diversity.
Nice.
So thank you so much for your time, Omar. It's been a pleasure reconnecting, and hopefully we can do it again in person sooner than 5 years.
Thank you, Ken. It's been an honor and a privilege to be on, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Take care.